Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Today we have with us Stephanie McPhail. Stephanie helps professional women heal, transform, and thrive after toxic relationships. She is also a podcast host and author of the book, Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt. Welcome to the show, Stephanie. It's really great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Jill. I'm excited to be here.
So how did you get started in all of this? There's got to be a story behind
Of course.
healing from toxic relationships.
Of course. I mean, I don't know if anybody listening can resonate with this, but I used to be really good at choosing really terrible people to be in relationships with.
Yeah. I do it.
Yeah. And the thing is that, you know, I was in several, but the worst being really my first marriage where he strangled me on our wedding night.
Oh
I
God.
saw red flags before, but I was getting to an age where I thought I wanted to settle down. I had never really seen a healthy relationship. I thought this was the best I could get. And, you know, it was uncomfortable, but discomfort was comfortable because that's what I knew. And so I was hoping to make it work. And he promised me he would never do it again and things would change and all the stuff they always say. And I ended up staying for 5 more years of more abuse. Until I would kick him out, I would let him back in, I would force him to go to therapy, he'd stop going, and it was like always this drama, this stressful situation until I finally kicked him out for good. And after we got a divorce, he was still trying to get back into the house and still trying to manipulate his way into my life. And I ended up in the emergency room. I had a lot of health issues. I went through a depression and I had a lot of health issues that happened. My grandmother passed away. All these bad things kept happening to me. And I ended up in the emergency room again. And my school, I had actually sprained my ankle and while I was at work, and my school called my ex-husband because he was still the emergency contact. And so I get to the emergency room and he's there. And the doctor, you know, they do the x-ray, they check everything out and they say, okay, you have a severely sprained ankle. You're gonna have to stay off your feet. And I start crying in the hospital room and they both look at me like I'm crazy. But I literally had a voice that I heard clear as day that said, you need to be your own knight in shining armor and stop waiting for somebody else to come and save you. And it was in that moment that I realized that whatever I had done before had not worked. I kept saying I didn't want to be in an unhealthy relationship. I was fighting, I was trying to prove myself, but I kept making the same kinds of mistakes. And so in that moment, I made the decision to make my future about healing. Like, what do I have to do to never, ever, ever have this happen again? And so I just spent some time focusing on me, figuring out who I was, what I wanted for myself, what I wanted my future to look like. And because of that work, I was able to really be happy being single. And I grieved possibly never ending up with someone. And once I fully let all that go, the need to be in a relationship and all of that, I found an amazing husband, partner. We were best friends and became, you know, we became exclusive. And ever since we made the decision to be together, we now get to help other people heal. And we now have 2 beautiful children. And it's our life's mission together to help people heal. Because when you're in it, it's hard to see your way out of it. It's hard to understand what's possible for you if you do the work.
Especially when you're in a situation and it's comfortable because you're modeling your parents or some version of your parents. It might not be exactly your parents, but your parents treat you in a way that's comfortable, and then you find partners that kind of treat you in the same sort of way because you don't know that there's anything else out there. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, I never had experienced really healthy before. The closest thing I had was a long-term boyfriend before my first marriage, and things were great for the first 2 years, but they were great because we were partying. And, like, I had a house, and everyone came to, I mean, we're in our early 20s, everyone came to our house, we had fun. And then when life started happening and that boyfriend's father passed away, he got cancer, passed away, and life it became what it was, he couldn't handle it. And so, that little taste of what was possible, like, oh, you can be best friends, you can have a good time. And then I had that turnaround, and I stayed longer than I should have, because I still was I had seen what was possible. But then I got let down because it was just became another toxic thing in my life. And so, I really think that when you haven't experienced healthy, and, especially when you don't do the work, when someone shows you even just that little bit extra, we cling on to those breadcrumbs, and we hope for that. So, if we don't, and again, like, in between relationships, I never got the right support. So I just kept choosing these unhealthy people, because you revert to what like what you said, whether it's your upbringing gets you prepared for it, and then those relationships afterwards just kind of layer onto what your other experiences were, until for you that's just normal. That's just how relationships are. Even though intellectually you might say, I don't want that, there's still that part of you that just thinks, this is how it's going to be for me. And maybe it's possible for those other people, but for me, this is the best I've experienced. So I'm going to take and grab onto whatever I can, instead of saying, hey, this has been my experience. It doesn't have to continue to be. Things can be different, but I have to make different choices. It's hard to make those different choices.
I think you're absolutely right. You said something earlier that I want to circle back to about being your own knight in shining armor. And in order to be your own knight in shining armor, you have to change things about yourself and the relationship that you have with yourself.
Yes.
Which is kind of like, it's a foundational piece, but most people miss it when they're stuck in these relationships. What they're getting is a mirror of how they view themselves, really.
Yeah. And the being your own knight in shining armor doesn't mean figuring it out on your own. I had done that before. I had tried so hard to figure it out on my own. Being my own knight in shining armor was being the one to come and save me. I had to realize what I was not good at. So, like, hey, relationships, not my thing. I need someone to help me see where I'm making these mistakes. So that meant creating my team, getting my therapist, getting a coach, surrounding myself around healthy people, doing all those things to choose something different, to make a conscious decision to choose something different. Because a lot of the times, a lot of us are living in this subconscious world, meaning we're acting on the subconscious level. We're just automatically reacting to life, as opposed to consciously making decisions. And so when we're in that place and our subconscious is ruling us, we go to what we know, which for a lot of us tends to not bring us to the right place if we don't have good experience with that.
And a lot of those subconscious programs that we run in our minds are based on a 6-year-old's perspective. We just never upgrade the software. We just kind of go on remote. And really, it's something, maybe they need to teach it in school, or parents need to teach it to their kids. I know that having all these coaches out here who are like, hey, this is really important, is super helpful for the whole rest of the world. But really just upgrading the perspectives that you had as a little kid, designed to help you survive in the world, because that's what your subconscious is designed to do, help you make sense of things and protect yourself. But as you get older and you have different experiences, don't you find it like necessary for people to change how they're thinking about things and how they react to things?
100%. That's what my husband does, something called Psyche. And
Mhm.
Psyche helps with the subconscious rewiring. So those parts of you that, again, the belief, I'm not good enough, it's not possible for me to change, all the good ones are taken, I'm too old, whatever those things are that we tell ourselves, if we change those belief systems, which is the BS that we tell ourselves, right?
Mhm.
If we change that and we start changing it to the more positive, it's possible for me to create something healthy. And that becomes our baseline. It's easier for us to make the right decisions for ourselves. And what's great about Psyche, most people haven't heard of it, but it's in the same family as EMDR and NLP, it's energy psychology. And, you know, when you change that baseline, it doesn't become, you don't have to think about it, because now that is your subconscious belief. Where, you know, before you're having to fight against your subconscious beliefs, which is what makes things so difficult. Like, for example, I want to lose 20 pounds. You know, it's the new year, right? So everybody wants to lose weight and do all these things. If your belief is it's not possible for me to lose 20 pounds, or like I've had clients or like, but who will I be if I lose 20 pounds? Or who will I be if I stop being the person in toxic relationships, or whatever that is? That's
Mhm.
going to sabotage you every single time. You might have every single best intention, but if those beliefs are it's not possible, or I'm going to lose myself, we hold on to that. So we've got to change those patterns. So 100%. I mean, that's such a big part of healing. It's not just, you know, when people are like, I'm just going to go to a therapist. Nothing against therapy. I love therapists. But there is, you know, when we work with clients, it's very holistic. So we want you to look at the subconscious. We want you to look at how you're behaving socially, emotionally, spiritually, physically. Like, let's look at all of it, get it back into balance. Because when we are people pleasing, when we are taking care of everybody else, we're completely out of whack. It's all focused on the other person and healing. And let me not look at my own issues. And then part of the healing is now taking the mirror, like you said, and putting it back on yourself and saying, hey, what am I doing that's not working for me? I have to be responsible for myself. And then I have to be able to look at the things that I can do differently to create the life that I want. It's much more empowering.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. Do you
No.
find that?
No. And that's another thing too. When I have clients that come to me like, I've been in therapy for 25 years, I'm like, oh gosh, why? Like, you should not have to be talking about the same thing for 25 years. That's not effective therapy.
Mhm.
Therapy is great to figure out, you know, I always like the example of coaching versus therapy, where, you know, therapy is great to figure out backwards. Like, okay, I did this because of my family upbringing, dad was an alcoholic, whatever those things are that you had to deal with
Mhm.
growing up. And we've all had different kinds of trauma, even the best of families. There's something that went on that probably didn't work well for you. But so you have that trauma that you need to process. And now when you have a coach, we're really focused on moving you forward. So we want to make sure that we're giving you the guidance, support, and tools to get to the goal that you're looking to achieve. Like, yeah, we talk about backwards, but our big thing is, okay, you want to achieve happiness. You want to get into a healthy relationship. You want to reconnect yourself. Whatever that goal is, we want to make sure we give you the steps to get there. And like, we have a 12-week program. We have some clients in 2 weeks. They're like, oh my gosh, who am I? I'm completely changed. You know, some people takes a little bit longer than that, but it shouldn't be 25 years of talking
Years
about
and
the same
years and
thing.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like that makes me sad when I hear that for people.
It makes me sad too, and it's such a prevalent problem because people didn't realize there are so many more tools. Let me rephrase this. There are so many more tools now than there were even 5 years ago. You're talking about Psyche. That's an amazing modality, and people are just now figuring out about it. And the rapid eye movement thing. These are things that are super effective.
Mhm.
Even tapping people, it's been around for a while, but still people roll their eyes at you when you tell them you tap. Well,
Or Reiki. Like my husband's, you know, a Reiki, advanced Reiki practitioner. He's been doing it for 16 years. We see great results, you know, calmness, connection, all those really great things from Reiki, while other people will look at it and be like, well, that's not real. But we find if someone like gets surgery, like and they're in the hospital and they're getting Reiki, they're actually healing at a quicker rate. Gotta tell you something's going on there.
I have an experience, a personal experience with my father who's 80. He was 86 when this happened, but his neck, it was almost frozen. Like he was struggling moving his head from side to side.
Mhm.
And he's really open to exploring alternative therapies, which is kind of amazing
Yeah.
for
For that
somebody
age
in that
group.
age group.
Yeah.
So there's this guy, he does Tai Chi all the time. And this guy, he's a Tai Chi master who he's a young guy. I have to preface this with he's a young guy. He's in his 20s, and
Uh-huh.
he comes into this retirement community, and he charges like the whole group of people a price, and he comes in and he works on them individually. And when he can get enough clients to all be there at the same time,
Mhm.
he'll come. But he works on my dad. He has an assistant. My dad says he never even touched me. He just moved his hands over my body, and I was healed. I mean, now he can move his neck all over the place. And, you know,
Yeah.
do you tell me what that was? Because to me, that was just he moved his energy and now he's got these amazing results.
That's what, when, so, and there's something, so, I'm a Reiki level 2 practitioner, but my husband, is the advanced practitioner. So he's been doing this for a really long time. And when we were first dating, and well, even when I was in my toxic relationships, people don't realize the amount of strain that does to your body. So stress causes inflammation, and inflammation causes disease and causes pain and causes all sorts of things. And so when I was in my abusive marriage, my back would hurt so bad, my leg would give out. So like I would walk and then trip on my own feet from nothing, just because my leg would give out. Or so
Mhm.
I'd have like severe back pains or shoulder issues or headaches. I would get migraines all the time, like all these different things. And I was in my 30s. And so, I'm now in my 40s and like I have zero back problems. And we store a lot of our stress in our lower back. And so, when I first started dating my husband, I was having, I think I was not even, I was like in California, he was in New York. And I was saying to him, like, oh, my left shoulder is killing me. I just had been in a plane for a bunch of hours and done all this traveling. And it's like my shoulder's hurting me. And he said, okay, well, can you go lay down somewhere? I'm going to send you Reiki. And I was like, I've got meetings for like the next 8 hours. I can't, I'm going to be sitting, but I can't like lay there. He's like, all right, I'll take care of it. About 20 minutes later, all of a sudden I was like, my shoulder doesn't hurt. And he had done Reiki, and you can do a distance Reiki just as effective as in person. But there is something really cool about the ability to send Reiki at that energetic level. It's like connecting to someone on a soul level and sharing and changing, really like kind of channeling the energy into whatever that person needs to help them heal. And to me, it's always like, it's like magic, but it's this cool thing. And my husband's definitely more the spiritual one. I'm a little bit more grounded, but I'm very much into what works. So
Yeah.
as much as stuff where I'm like, I don't 100% understand it, but I see the results. And for our clients, for myself, for my husband, for people that have experienced this, these things are life-changing and life-giving, because when you're in pain, it's hard to do much of anything else, and
Mhm.
if you're having all these other health issues, or you're, and again, like even just the psychological pain of trauma can be debilitating. But if you can work through that, then you're changing your life. So yeah, I think it's so important to learn these different modalities, not necessarily instead of the other stuff. Like obviously I'm not anti-Western medicine and stuff like that, but there is a time and a place for certain things. I think we have to be open to some of the alternative things that are out there, again, because of the results that we're seeing from these modalities.
Yeah. And magic is just science that hasn't been explained yet.
Yes.
It's not, and eventually they will be able to explain how all of this works. But I've seen experiments where people have done intentions. I've had intentions done on myself with a group of people. We're all over the world. We just hold the intention for 20 minutes, and maybe it was only 10 minutes. But we did 2 of them. But it 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 affected healing. I hit my thumb with a pneumatic nail drum or gun. It hit the bone and it hurt so bad, let me tell you. And after one round of this intentions, where these 8 other people just held the intention that it would be fine and like nothing happened, it was fine. I could bend my thumb, it didn't hurt, and it was a miracle.
Yeah.
But it's not a miracle. It's that's how we are designed to actually be able to help each other.
Yeah. Well, and so they've done studies with like meditation, and they did a group of Buddhist monks that were all putting out positive energy into like, and it was, I don't remember the numbers, but they were all meditating on positive energy. And they found, and for that period of time and a few hours afterwards, the rate of crime decreased, like statistically significant crime decreased in that area. And so if you have that, you know, if anybody ever is like, this is a little bit too weird for me or whatever, think about what if you're not sure about energy healing of some kind, think about if you walk into a room, can you feel that somebody else is in the room? You can sense it. I can, I'm sure. And most people I talk to, they can feel that somebody's in the room. That is energy. So if you can have that, just the sense that somebody else is there without seeing them, you just know someone's there, and then you're just looking like, I know somebody's, you don't hear them, there's no smell of them, like you can't smell their perfume, you know, but you know they're there. That is what is so cool about this positive energetic field. If you spend time with someone and you feel energized, then you understand. You feel drained when you're around people, that's all energy also. So, I mean, it makes sense to have that energy flow to be able to help heal those areas that need healing, and to be able to, and when you're working at a higher energy, that comes out in the things that you do, how you interact, and who you're attracting, that magnetism. And, you know, and it goes back to when I was in toxic relationships, I was attracting toxic people because of the energetic field that I was putting out. If I don't feel good enough, if I feel this is the best that I can get, my energy levels are in a very different place. Once you do the work and start healing, then all of a sudden you're up leveling. Now people that are vibrating at a similar level as you are, now those people are coming in. And now you're seeing people from a completely different way. So if you're like, hey, I keep attracting these toxic people, you might want to look at where you're at. Who are you attracting?
I have another experience that I want to share with you, and I'm curious what your feelings on this are. Do you interview people on your podcast?
Yes.
Okay. So do you find that when you're doing podcasts, do you do more than like one a day? Do you group them together to do them?
Sometimes. Most of the time I do one a day, but I've done 2 or 3 in one day also.
Do you find that you get groups of people that organize themselves around a topic?
Yes.
Like, isn't that interesting? Because it happens to me all the time. Like, I have another interview today, and we're going to be talking about something similar. Friday, it was all about the ethereal, spiritual stuff, and reality and consciousness. Other days, it's all about specifically health. And I don't pick what day these people are going to come on and get interviewed. They organize themselves in this way. It's just like so fascinating to me how energy works like that.
With my group coaching programs too, I find it at times where, because I'll have 5 or 6 clients in one day, and it's like, why is today this theme, whatever that theme is? It's not always the same. So, but you're right. I 100% agree with you. Like, there's times where you're like, oh, this is weird. It's actually funny because just the other day, I got like a Facebook memory, and it had a picture of me from a year ago, and I looked down and I'm wearing like the same outfit, and I'm like, what? This is not something I normally wear. I just happen to be wearing the same exact thing on, you know, a year later. And but it's interesting how those themes come up for ourselves and for other people.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool how that happens.
Yeah, it's amazing how the universe works. And yeah, I should ask you, how do you work with your clients? You mentioned groups. Do you just do group or do you do
That's a great
individuals?
question. So we do individual and we do group coaching. So we have a 12-week program. And one of the things that I found in the 10 years that we have been helping people heal, and we do work with men and women too. But I was just talking to someone today. We had to start having, like, we have a pretty good Facebook group size.
Mhm.
And we used to let everybody in there. And we give a lot of free resources and extra support in there, all for free. But the thing was is that when we let men in there, as much as our good intention was to help these men also heal, because men obviously need it too, some of the men that were coming in were like predators. They were like, "Ooh, a bunch of women looking to heal from unhealthy relationships. Wow, gold mine." And it was like,
Here, let me pick.
so we were like, okay, that was not our intention. We were just looking to help heal people. We have to protect our people. So we stopped letting men in. The men that are in our group have been vetted, like they're good guys, whatever. But we're not letting any new men in. And so that was something that was interesting to see, again, like that kind of thing of like, oh, our intention was to have this, but this is what was happening, and we had to make a shift. But anyway, so when we started working with clients, and we were at at the very beginning, I was just doing one-on-one, and I said I really want to do groups. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do groups is because I think that when you are in a situation, whether it's toxic relationships, with romantic relationships or friendships or business, or whatever that thing is, we feel really isolated. And so it's really great to have that connection with other people and to hear their stories, what they're going through, what they're trying to overcome. And so when you hear those stories, and like, for example, we do a group coaching call, and in that group coaching call, we do like pinpoint coaching to the people that are on the call. And
Mhm.
very often, same kind of thing. Someone's like, "Oh my gosh, I got so much out of what you said to this other person," or "I was feeling fill in the blank, and I didn't know, I couldn't put words to what I was feeling, but the way you just explained it to so and so now made me feel seen, and helped all that." So the group coaching I find to be really helpful, really supportive. And we do a kind of a mix, so that we do even the group coaching, we still allow for individual coaching there as well. So like, I'll do accountability with clients to make sure that they're keeping on task and doing the things they need to do, and kind of refocus when they need it. And then my husband does the Psych sessions individually as well. And then some people just want to work with us, like they're like, "I don't want to be with groups. I just want your individual attention." And so we have those capabilities as well. So we kind of just see where the person's at, what they're looking to achieve, what they're able to invest in, because sometimes that keeps you from getting the right help. And then we look at all of those things, and then we place them in the spot that's going to be best suited for them in their specific situation.
And that brings me around to the 15-minute consult. And I've heard the discovery call thing, and people are just like so over the discovery call. That's really a sales call.
Mhm.
It's not. There's a trend happening, I'm happy to report, where people really are just hopping on a call with you for 15 or 20 minutes and sorting you out.
Mhm.
If they've got stuff that can help you, they'll help you. If they don't, they might have resources that you never even thought of that you could go investigate on your own.
Yeah.
So I know that you offer that to people, and I know you offer a guide. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think the guide leads into the
Yeah. So if you go to Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt, I know it's long, but it's the name of my book. beinglovedshouldn'thurt.com/thrive-guide, and it'll be in the show notes.
yeah.
But if you go there, you can actually get the Thrive Guide, which is the heal, transform, and thrive after the toxic relationship. And you could even, if you're not sure if you're in a toxic relationship, or you're like, "I don't know if I want to stay, I don't know what's going on," wherever you're at in that process, whether you're still trying to figure it out, you're going through the divorce, or it's after, either one of those three places, this would be a great guide for you to have. It's like 9 pages or 10 pages. So you'll download it, you'll get it right away. It'll give you some of the steps that we use with our clients to actually heal. So you'll actually get that. You can print it out if you want to look at it, or if you just want to have it on your computer, you can keep it there. And then with that, we offer a 15-minute discovery call. But like you said, for us, a discovery call is not a sales call. So if you come to us, we want to make sure that we know what the issues are. And then we want to give you the direction of what's going to be some of the best resources for you. There are times where somebody comes, they have a discovery call, and we share some resources and we say, and you're not ready for us and what we do yet. But go here, watch these trainings, do these things. And then, like, for example, I had a client of mine who she was having issues with sex because of trauma that she had experienced. I was a health educator, so I can tell you all the, the parts and everything else, but that's not my specialty. So I sent her to someone that I know that specializes in dealing with sexual trauma, and then that affecting the sex life. So like there are specific coaches depending on what it is that you're dealing with. I know someone as well where she specializes in high conflict divorce specifically, like she helps you through and knows the steps and whatever with children on top of it. I would send someone there if that's going to be a better fit for them. So we always want to make sure that we're giving resources, seeing if they're a good fit for us, and how we can help them. And sometimes we can help them by offering somebody else that's going to be a better fit for their specific situation.
And that's one of the benefits of working with coaches who network, because we know everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're connected to people that know other people. I mean, we don't personally know everybody, but
yes. Well, that's
starting to feel like I do.
Well, and that's what, I actually just had a talk about connection. I literally just came back from a meeting, a collaboration meeting with a woman who was also in abusive relationships and, had all these terrible things happen to her. And her direction is just a little bit different than mine. Her focus is more on addiction, and then how that has negatively affected her, where we help with addiction at times, but that's not our focus. So for her, she's like, I want to send people your way. So we have, again, it's enough of a differentiation where we're not in competition with each other. We're just there to help each other out, because our big goal is helping the world be a better place. And if that's really what your goal is, if you just literally want to help people and you don't care if they work with you, you just want them to be happy and feel good, then you're going to send them in the right direction. The people that are going to be selfish and that are not in it for the right reasons might tell you that they can help you, but then they might not be the best fit just because they want your money, as opposed to they want you to be healthy and feel happy.
Yeah. And that happens too, but I think that's kind of fading. It feels like it is to me.
I hope so.
I think collaboration is kind of the buzzword for 2024. I'm hearing more and more people doing things that are where they're coming together and they're helping each other. They're similar, but different. And, really everybody else who comes in contact with both of them, it benefits, because they get the benefit of the expertise on both sides, which is, it's amazing. Yeah. It's really amazing. I love that. You do also have a podcast, the Toxic Love Podcast. Yeah. So talk about that just for a minute, and then we'll.
Sure. Well, so back in September, I actually had someone come to me and say, you need to have a podcast. And I said, well, I had one years ago on SoundCloud. I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't really have the time or the energy. And she is someone who she specializes in creating podcasts, but more importantly for her is she was also dealing with a toxic ex who is like a sociopath. So like beyond a lot of like some of the stuff, it actually will probably make national news at some point. But this person, she said, you need to do this because this will help people like me. And she's like, I see your vision. I see how passionate you are about what you do. You need to share this with people. And I said, okay, let's do it. And so I'm kind of coaching her also with some of the stuff she's dealing with. And, she's helping us with the podcast. But it really was just inspired to help people feel like they're not alone, help people see that it's possible to create the change that you're looking for, even if you don't know what that change is. Even if you're like, something just has to be different. I don't know what it is. I just know I'm not happy right now. And I know that something has to be different. This really is meant to inspire and really get you information and really inspire you to create those changes that you're looking for. So I do, sometimes the episodes are just with me, sometimes they're with my husband, and then sometimes I interview people that I think will be beneficial to our listeners as well.
That's awesome. And when it comes to toxic relationships, does what you put out there help people to determine if they're in a toxic relationship? Because sometimes it seems to me that you could be in a toxic relationship, but not really know if it's actually toxic or if it's just you. Is it all in my head, or is this really happening?
And, so the big buzzword is also narcissism. So, it's like the number one searched term. I don't believe everyone is a narcissist. I really don't. Even all the years of me doing this, it's not always somebody else's fault 100%. But the way that I look at it is toxic relationships are ones that don't bring out the best in you. So if you spend time with people and you feel drained, you feel overwhelmed, you feel uncomfortable, your body is telling you that this is not the right fit for you as a person. That is toxic for you. You both might actually be decent people, but for some reason you get together and you're bringing out the worst in each other. I think sometimes we get so stuck on trying to diagnose and we focus so much on what's wrong with that other person, it takes the responsibility on ourselves. That doesn't mean that we deserved any of the abuse or anything else that we experienced. However, and there's a time and a place to learn about what those things are. But I think the easiest way of understanding toxic relationships is just looking at how you feel. And if it doesn't feel good, stop doing that. It's like the old joke. It hurts when you put up your arm, stop putting up your arm. Like stop doing things that are intentionally hurting yourself. But I think that, especially women, I think we are more programmed to be people pleasers. And we want to be able to control, to fix, to help. But we've got to put that focus on off the other person and put the focus on ourselves to help and heal. So yeah, I think, and my book actually specifically talks about my story and then also shares some red flags and green flags moving forward for healthy relationships as well. So yeah, it's definitely, that's part of it. And I think, I don't know how everyone's listening to this, but if you don't see the picture behind me of my husband and I think that when people come to us seeing a healthy relationship modeled in front of them for potentially the first time, especially knowing my story of how terrible my other relationships were, I think that in and of itself just gives people hope and inspiration that if Stephanie can come from such terrible background, then maybe it's possible for me to find someone like David that, again, neither one of us are perfect, but we work well together.
And do you work with people in terms of helping them fix relationships? Like if they're in a relationship that maybe is that they're in, and they've been in it for a while, and there's the good and the bad, because I've been married for a long time. And I love my husband dearly, and he's not always the perfect guy, but he's my guy. I know him. I don't want anybody else. Trust me.
Yeah.
But it is possible to be in a relationship with somebody that, because relationships go up and down, do you help them determine is this just like a downtrend, and are there things I can do to like maybe shift it a little bit? Because people grow and they change in life, and you're not always in the same spot, and sometimes one will move faster than the other. And do you talk to people about the grace in there for allowing relationships to heal, I guess is.
When it depends, because if someone's coming to me and they're at like stage 4 abuse, meaning there's been physical abuse, then no way. I'm going to do everything in my power to steer you away from that. And the levels of abuse, there's definitely all of that. Now, I mean, we had a client of ours that her husband had been an alcoholic, but he had stopped drinking years before. And she came to us specifically, she wanted to end the relationship. And when we started to work with her, we worked on her own communication. So I think you're going to hear right now, I'll tell you ahead of time, the Cliff Notes, the theme is work on yourself, because she started to do the work on herself and realized that she was still holding on to this animosity of who he was 5 years ago or 10 years ago, along with suppressing the sadness that she had felt. She had been molested by her older brother, and she had not told people this. And the brother had died, and she felt like she was excited that he died, but she couldn't tell anybody that she was, so like there was all these other layers that was keeping her from showing up in her current relationship. And so are those things that can make it so that your relation, and remember, the guy had done the work. Her husband had done the work. He was in 12 steps. He was actively working his own program, doing his own work. And so that they're now happier than they've ever been. Yes, he had changed, but she wasn't even understanding or believing it. So, but they both had to do the work. What I find a lot of times, especially by the time people come to us, is that someone will say to me, we're working on this, but the only person working on it is the person who came to us. The other side isn't working. So, there still has to be a certain level of respect. Both people have to be like willing and open to looking at where their faults are, of what they can do to change. But in saying all of that, we can't make anybody do any of those things. So we focus on ourselves. And if that means the other communication, boundaries, I mean, number one, believing that it's possible and that we are deserving of these wonderful things, we have to do all that ourselves. And then you're going to find out, is your partner going to step up, or are you going to step away? And it can be, and like you said, sometimes marriage, it goes up and down. Sometimes you feel really connected. Sometimes you don't feel connected. But when you are both doing active work on yourself, and then you're making time for each other and being respectful and listening, being a good listener, and sharing what your wants and needs are, those things will fix themselves if we do that work.
I agree with that 100%. I've seen it over and over in my own relationship.
Yep.
And often when I think things are really bad, I just have to look at myself.
Yeah.
And realize that starts with me. I'm the problem.
And it's hard, it is hard, but and sometimes we default back to what we've done before. And so we have to look at that too, hey, I'm feeling really frustrated with my significant other. Like, is it really them? Have I shared, like, I give the story, and I know we're finishing up, but it was probably a few months ago, and I woke up and I wasn't feeling well. And normally my husband and I get up together and we get the kids ready for school. We have young kids. We get them ready for school and all that. And already in my mind, I was mad that I had to get up and help the kids go to school. And I was feeling already overwhelmed and stressed. And I had all in my own head decided all of these things. And then I don't know, about 10 minutes of laying there, kind of starting to get irritated, I said, hey, babe, can you just take care of the kids today? I'm not feeling good. And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And
Exactly.
I was like scratching my head, and I was like, oh my gosh, how many of us do that? Where we've already decided all these things, but I hadn't even asked. It was just like, this is the expectation. This is what we have to do. No, I just like he would have been allowed to sleep in if he wasn't feeling well. I was allowed to sleep in, but we have to use our voice. Nobody's a mind reader, and we're going to get ourselves in trouble in whatever relationship we're in if we think that person is a mind reader.
I have a similar story, and it's about mason jars that my husband uses to make protein shakes. And he likes to drink his protein shake, and then he likes to let it soak in the sink. And it used to like trip my trigger every single time. I get so mad because it's always after I've just done all the dishes. We wash all our dishes by hand around here. So eventually I'm like, why don't you just wash this? And the reason was his hand doesn't fit in the jar.
Oh.
Like, well, that makes a lot of sense. My hand does. It takes, 15 seconds to clean it. I don't mind doing that for you. On the other hand, he always takes the trash out, never complains about it. it just is magically empty under the sink when I wake up in the morning, and it's like so wonderful. So, I mean,
there's give and take. And even, you know, when we first moved, and when we first moved to Texas, my husband, we were moving furniture, and he actually perforated his colon and ended up being in the hospital for like in and out for over a year. And he literally almost died. And at one point he was in the hospital for 6 weeks after, I mean, he went septic, and it was really awful. And I remember, you know, to give that example is, you know what, those clothes next to the bed that annoy the crap out of me, I would miss those. I missed those clothes being on the floor. You know, the fact that he had like drawers, I mean, doors that you can't, like, you open the drawer, close the drawer, you know, like some of these things that are just typical. I'm like, these are the conversations I have with my female friend, but him not being there and those things not being like that, I missed. Because I missed him, and that meant he wasn't there. And so, and the thought of that, I might never have that again, was a real feeling. And so, you know, when you think of those things, is this really that big of a deal? Is me just seething about something that's not that important? Is that, what's the big deal about these things? And so, yeah, it gave me a bit of a different perspective in that as well.
Yeah. And those kinds of things are really helpful for people. But if you are in a toxic relationship, and if you are being abused physically or emotionally, and those things do exist, probably a lot more than most people will give it credit for. Even if you have children, seek help. If you don't call Stephanie, call somebody. It's never in your best interest just to, you know, suck it up and stay there.
Before I started sharing my story, I really thought I was the only professional woman who was dealing with such a terrible relationship. And once I started sharing it, I was amazed at how many this has nothing to do with your intelligence. It has nothing to do with what you deserve. It just has to do with what your programming, what your background was, what your experience was. We can fix all that, but do not put yourself in a situation where you're going to continue to hurt yourself. Because if you think you're protecting your kids, even if you think they're not seeing anything, they are.
Yeah, you're teaching them bad habits and modeling behavior that is not acceptable under any circumstance.
100%.
So, what do you hope the audience takes away from all this today, Stephanie? We've covered a lot of territory.
Yeah, well, I mean, I really hope, you know, no matter what you've experienced, no matter how long you've experienced, I want you to realize that there is hope, and it is possible for you to create the change, that even if it's just a glimmer, like I always say, the size of a mustard seed, that tiny glimmer of hope that maybe things can get better. Follow that hope, follow where it takes you, and you'll be amazed at what's possible. But it takes not only just the thought about it, but you got to remember to take action to make that a reality.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the You World Order, or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.